Intel 3nm node meets yield and performance targets. Intel's 3nm Granite Rapids and Sierra Forest processors are on track for 2024. So this is actually the workstations. So they're going to use it in the workstations first, and then they'll tweak it, and then it'll come down to us. Intel's 3nm class process technology has met its defect density and performance targets. The company announced this week the Intel 3 fabrication technology is on track to be used for high volume manufacturing of Intel's upcoming codenamed Granite Rapids and Sierra Forest processors next year, according to Intel.
So Granite Rapids is basically their workstation, their Xenon platform, not desktops. But still, this is...
Today's video was brought to you by ewin Racing, the best source for gaming chairs and desks for those long gaming sessions. We have a playlist of our ewin chair and desk videos linked in the video description below. Save 30% off of everything using the discount code TechDeals. More details at the end of the video.
Intel was stuck on 14 nanometers for
a long time.
Ever. This is nice to see.
Because it'll come to us at some point, the consumer.
Well, this is going to be needed. Now, here's what's interesting. I commented on this last year. Intel's not actually calling any of their processes nanometers anymore. Do you notice Intel's 3nm class process?
Correct.
In fairness.
Whereas Intel 3 is the previous 5nm. So that's different.
Well, the reason they're doing this is because all of the nanometer ratings are marketing. None of them have a unified transistor size or gap difference. Not TSMC, not Intel, nobody. Different elements on the chip have different gaps and widths and features, and they're designed so some parts of the chip have more electricity running through them than others, and so they've got to be gapped more.
Right.
Others have less, and so they can be tightened. And some areas are left blank for heat dissipation reasons. So the chips are not they're not the circuits are not laid down uniformly.
Right.
They're spaced as needed for various uses. But they have to pick a number for marketing reasons. So technically, Intel's 3nm class process is actually 5nm. But before everybody says, well, so they're lying. Well, they're counting differently, which sounds worse almost.
They're counting differently.
They use the new math.
They use the new math.
Here's the truth.
So it's 3nm here, 5nm here.
No, it's actually all 5nm, but that's not the point. Not all nanometers are the same.
Nanometer is a nanometer.
No, because let's back up, because TSMC's nanometers aren't as good as Intel's. And here's why. Your i9 10850K is a 14nm chip.
Okay.
It came out in 2020, the same year as Zen 3. Zen 3 is on 7nm.
Correct.
14, 7. Half the feature size should be dramatically faster. And it's not. It should be dramatically lower power consumption. And it's not. The i9 10850K is only marginally slower per clock than Zen 3. 5%, maybe 10 in certain optimized scenarios.
Okay.
But at 14nm versus 7, it should be way further apart than that. Here's why that's the case. And the clock speed's pretty close. Yours is 4.7 or 4.6. A Zen 3 5900X, for example, or a 5700, 5800X is 4.4, 4.5. Okay. So clock speed, they're about the same. Intel's process optimization, layout, and design are superior to TSMC's. So TSMC's 7nm is less efficient and less performant than Intel's 14. Intel is really tighter, and TSMC's fudging the number more. Because in a true comparison, a 14nm would demolish a 7nm would demolish a 14nm.
You would think.
Power consumption? a Ryzen 9 5800X versus your chip, they're not that far off. Yours uses a bit more power, but not much.
Okay.
Prime 95 benchmarks don't count. The i9 13900K is 10 nanometer. The Ryzen 9 7950X is 5 nanometer.
5, yeah.
TSMC versus Intel. So the 7950X should be crushing the 13900K.
No.
But it doesn't.
It doesn't.
In fact, the 13900K is faster. Mostly. In most situations, 13900K is faster. It uses more power, but not too much more power. And here's what's interesting. The Intel chip idles slower. The idle power consumption is 20 to 25 watts lower on the Intel chip. Depending on what boost features you have turned on. So, when Intel says 3 nanometer class, the reason they've done this is because their process is better, and so they are going with names Intel 3 instead of calling it Intel's 5 nanometer process in order to compensate and say their 3 process is actually closer to TSMC's 3 nanometer than to their 5. Would you like to know why this is blinking hilarious?
Why?
Because back in the 90s, Cyrex, and later AMD, did the same thing with their PR rating, which originally was Pentium rating, which Intel sued them for, and then they backtracked it and said, oh, we didn't mean Pentium rating, we meant performance rating. Yeah, a performance rating. Because a Cyrex 6x86 running at 133 megahertz was actually as fast as a Pentium at 166. But if you tried to mark the chip 133, consumers who don't know any better would not pay as much for it. So they said Cyrex 6x86 PR 166. And so all people see, the average consumer, oh, that's a 166 and that's a 166. Oh, but the Intel chip is $600 and the Cyrex chip is $400. Well, they're both 166 was right. That's the number. So okay. But if they put the 133 on there,
then
it'd have to be way cheaper. Intel's K6, AMD's K6 chip did the same thing as well. They sold it as a PR rating. They did eventually move to just using clock speeds once Intel moved on.
right.
So AMD and Cyrex used to do that to Intel. And now Intel's doing it
to them.
to TSMC.
Oh, dear me.
Intel sued them back then for doing it. And I just think it's bloody hilarious. So that's the story behind that.
Right. The once was very cool enough. Fair enough. All right.
At the end of the day, whatever they label it doesn't really matter. It's how well does it run your programs and applications.
Yep.
How much power does it use? And like clock speed. Who cares whether it's 2 gigahertz, 5 gigahertz, or 18 billion gigahertz? How well does it run your software? What was the first consumer CPU to hit 5 gigahertz? It's more than
9900K?
almost 10 years ago. No.
Oh, 10 years ago?
FX 9590.
The 95.
That didn't make it good.
No.
And FX 9590 is still garbage. So clock speed doesn't mean anything if the chip's terrible.
That's true.
So
That's true.
I'm just pointing that little detail out. We having fun yet, folks? We do still have our Mach-E. Not for much longer, though. We need something bigger.
Yeah.
It's kind of tiny.
The kids are kind of squished in the back.
We'll just strap one to the roof. What are you talking about? Hang on. We need to read more of this.
Why?
I don't know.
ewin Racing has a wide selection of chairs to fit all shapes and sizes of gamers, ranging from petite to cuddly. They have something for every type of gamer. Not just sizes, but colors and material options as well, including red, blue, purple, pink, orange, and more, plus cloth and leather choices. We have over half a dozen chair and desk videos in a playlist down in the video description below. We also have a very special offer just for Tech Deals viewers. Save 30% off of everything using discount code TechDeals using our link in the video description. We have used ewin gaming chairs for 3 years in our office, sitting on them for up to 8-hour marathon live streams. They are very comfortable, and we are happy to work with ewin to bring you this special discount and recommend ewin for all of your gaming chair and desk needs. You could read that.
I don't want to read it.
Why not? It's all fancy here. Do you want me to make it bigger for you?
No, I don't want to. You can read that.
I don't want to read it. I've been talking for 3 hours.
Yeah, I've been listening.
That's not as hard as talking. I want to pay for... Ooh, she's giving me the look. But even all these words here don't really matter, because all that matters at the end of the day is how well it performs.
Performance.
Performance.
Yep.
Now, the supporting article to this is... Oh, not that one. This one.
Dozens of companies adopt TSMC's 3nm process technology.
Can you believe how tiny those chips are?
Yeah, they're 3nm. That's a lot of them.
Yeah, that's true.
So why are they adopting it if it's not as good as Intel? I guess
Intel doesn't make their stuff available.
Oh, well, I was going to say, otherwise they're competing against themselves. So
Yes.
that would be a bit silly.
Intel does actually make chips for other companies on their previous process. They actually have a service that does that.
Right.
But their latest stuff they use all for their own
It's
stuff.
Mine.
So, TSMC's 3nm process has been adopted by dozens of leading companies to accelerate their development time, etc., etc., etc. Well, this shouldn't surprise anybody, because who else is there in the game? Samsung's fallen off. So it's TSMC and Intel.
Mm-hmm. High performance computing and smartphones, system on a chip.
What else is there to say?
Nope.